Welcome, everyone, to today's CFSC Farm Bill virtual listening session. Thank you so much for joining us. We have quite a few people that had registered, and we're really excited to be having this opportunity to present to you about the Farm Bill and to hopefully get lots of valuable feedback as we enter into our Farm Bill priority setting process. As we go ahead and get started, I want to go ahead and go over some initial logistical information with the webinar. And you should be seeing in a moment a screen on your computer that has audio directions on it. And sorry, we have one little technical difficulty in advancing the slides. Here we go. So in one moment you should be seeing a slide that talks a little bit about your audio capabilities. So if you would like to participate in the webinar using a telephone, please make sure that in the audio mode box you have checked the Use Telephone selection in the control panel and follow the dial-in instructions. And and your audio pin is unique to you, so please make sure that you do enter that and follow that. When you are, as a participant, you are in listen-only mode. You can also use your mic and speakers if you have a headset. However, during the question and answer portion of the webinar, you will likely need to dial in from a telephone to answer a question or type your question into the question box. We'll talk more about the question and answer section as we move forward in the webinar. So thank you for bearing with us. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty in advancing the slides, and we'll hope to have that fixed momentarily. But briefly, I'm just going to touch on today's speakers. Presenting to you today, we have Andy Fisher, who is the Executive Director of the Community Food Security Coalition, Kathy Mulvey, who is the Policy Director of the Community Food Security Coalition in our DC office, and myself, Megan Lott, who is the Associate Policy Director of the Community Food Security Coalition, also in the DC office. So we're going to be spending a bit of time today talking to you about some Farm Bill background, as well as how the Farm Bill has or has not in the past supported community food security, and then talk a little bit about potential areas of action for CFSC in the upcoming Farm Bill. And with that, we will be providing opportunities for folks to ask questions and provide feedback to us as we move forward in our Farm Bill platform development process. And lastly, we will provide you with information on accessing a participant survey in which you can provide us with more detailed feedback on what is needed in your community, state, or region around the 2012 Farm Bill. So as we move forward to some Farm Bill background, as I mentioned, my name is Megan Lott, and I'm the Associate Policy Director in our DC office, and I'm going to give you some basic information and background on the Farm Bill. So the Farm Bill is the primary piece of agriculture and food policy legislation that comes up for reauthorization roughly every 5 years. And according to the Congressional Research Service, the first Farm Bill was the Food and Agriculture Act of 1965. However, many historians say the first Farm Bill was adopted in 1933, mostly really back when this would be the Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1933, originally conceived as an emergency bailout for millions of farmers and unemployed employed during the dark times of the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. So there's a little bit of disagreement between some historians and the Congressional Research Service on when, in fact, the first Farm Bill actually took place. But there doesn't seem to be too much disagreement on the fact that the Farm Bill is the basic piece of legislation that determines what sort of foods we Americans eat and how they taste and how much they cost, which crops are grown under what conditions, and ultimately whether we as Americans are properly nourished or not. In the 2008 Farm Bill, which was the most recent Farm Bill, there were 15 titles. So many people know the Farm Bill as having two primary thrusts, one being food stamps and nutrition programs, and the other being income and price supports for a number of storable commodity crops. In addition, the Farm Bill funds a range of other program titles, including conservation and environment, forestry, renewable energy, research, and rural development. The number of titles in the Farm Bills changes often with each Farm Bill. As I mentioned, in 2008, there were 15. Many of CFSC priorities fall into the nutrition programs, which is Title IV, the horticultural and organic agriculture title, which was Title X, and many people are often curious about what falls into Title 14, which is the miscellaneous title, and this is where we find provisions for socially disadvantaged and limited resource producers, agricultural security such as disaster aid or ag biosecurity planning, preparedness and response. And this is also where we find regional infrastructure and economic development, domestic food assistance programs such as Section 32 funds, and provisions on animal health and welfare. So there are these 15 titles, and of those 15 titles, you can see that only 4 areas make up the bulk of the Farm Bill spending. In 2008, the Farm Bill was projected to cost $284 billion over a period of 5 years. And this seems like an unfathomably large sum, but it's actually it's less than 1% of the entire federal budget. So while it seems quite large, it is actually a very small piece of the gigantic government spending pie. And when you look at the 4 areas that make up the bulk of the Farm Bill's spending, in parentheses on the slide you see the different percentages, and that is nutrition title makes up about 67%, the commodity support 15%, conservation 9%, and crop insurance 8%. This all adds up to, depending on where you look for your sources, between 97 and 99% of total Farm Bill spending, which means that all of the 11 other titles are sharing between 1 and 3% of funding available. As I mentioned, with most of CFSC priorities falling in other areas here, not these 4 big titles, we are fighting over a very limited pot of that $284 billion. So in looking at how the Farm Bill works, the key congressional committees involved in writing the Farm Bill are often referred to as the authorizing committees. And this would be the House Committee on Agriculture and the Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry. As I mentioned, they are responsible for writing the different programs and provisions that come up every 5 years for reauthorization and making those changes. The appropriations committees then determine how much funding should be allocated for specific programs during each fiscal year. So, for example, with the Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children, that is something that gets funded every year on an annual basis through the Appropriations Committee. So these are 4 very important committees involved in the Farm Bill process. When looking at a Farm Bill, there are so many different interest groups and people involved. And this slide shows just a bit of the different groups involved. And so this is really in here to point out that we talked about, the history of the Farm Bill and what the Farm Bill typically covers, as well as the funding in the Farm Bill and where that funding goes. And these, I think, it's really important to know all the different groups that go into these different congressional offices and government agencies and are each fighting for a piece of that pie and looking to get the limited funding available put towards their programs. And so, you know, community food security has some overlap with some of these other groups on the slide, such as nutrition, public health, anti-hunger, sustainable ag, but there are also a lot of groups on here that we don't typically have overlap with and are sometimes competing for priorities and money with. So with that, we're going to move on to talk a little bit more about the Farm Bill and community food security. And I'm going to hand that over to Andy Fisher to take up that piece of the discussion.
Okay, thanks, Megan. CFSC has been involved in the Farm Bill since its beginning, since 1994, and we were originally really founded to work on the Farm Bill and got involved on helping to start the Community Food Projects program back in part as the 96 Farm Bill. And, you know, the Farm Bill has generally not been very supportive of local food systems and community food systems, as Megan said. You know, only 1 to 3% of funding is available for all those other programs, of which a very, very small percentage of that goes towards projects that would support access to healthy food or that would support direct connections between farmers and consumers. Commodity programs have not been really tailored towards supporting local agriculture. In fact, you know, they've been directed to support production agriculture in the sense of commodity crops as corn, soybeans, rice, sugar, cotton, and the like. What's called specialty crops or fruit and vegetables generally have received very little funding in the Farm Bill. And some of that plays out with the regional tensions within the Farm Bill, in which the Farm Bill tends to be a Midwestern and Southern-oriented bill, and places such as California and the Northeast don't have as much of a stake in the Farm Bill except for the SNAP program. And then finally, the SNAP program, or the food stamp program, as Megan also said, is an enormous part of the Farm Bill and is obviously a core issue for those of us working with low-income communities. You can move it. So the next slide. Sorry, I think we're having a little technical difficulty here with getting the next slide moving forward.
Go ahead, Andy, and continue on. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So, as part of the 2008 Farm Bill, CFSC was involved in getting the let me take a step back. Back in the '96 Farm Bill, we were able to get the Community Food Program, the Community Food Projects program passed. That was initially funded at $2.5 million a year, and is now at $5 million a year, and was made permanent in the 2008 Farm Bill, and that provides funding to community groups for grants programs to build self-reliance related to food and low-income communities. Other successes we've had in the Farm Bill have been around the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, also what's called the HUFED program, the Healthy Urban Food Enterprise Development Program, which funds enterprise projects, business projects in underserved communities, and also with the Farmers Market Promotion Project. We've also worked on establishing geographic preferences, allowing states to buy locally produced food for their school programs, worked on nutrition title programs as well, and a whole host of other local food system projects related to infrastructure, especially in the last Farm Bill. Okay. I think it's back to Megan. Or back to Kathy, sorry.
Yeah, actually. So this is where we are now. So the Farm Bill is slated to come up in 2012 for reauthorization, but there's a lot of shifting context in Congress and on Capitol Hill. There's new leadership in both the House and Senate Agriculture committees. So on the House side, there's new Republican leadership. The new chair of the committee is Frank Lucas of Oklahoma, who's known as a supporter of commodity crops. So that's a shift in context there, and perhaps even more important is that there are many, many new members of the House Ag Committee. Of the 26 Republicans on the House Ag Committee now, 16 of them are freshmen. So this is a time when there's going to be a lot of important education to do for community food security advocates about the impact of these programs in districts, to make sure that that the work that we're doing, the work that people are doing through community food projects, as well as how the SNAP program it benefits people in this time of tough economic situation, is going to be really important to make that visible. Also, on the House side, several of the new Democrats on the committee are from districts that aren't traditionally ag districts, and some of them are from urban communities. So one example is Jim McGovern of Massachusetts, who's the co-chair of the House Anti-Hunger Caucus and has been an important ally on fighting hunger. On the Senate side, there's also a new chair of the Agriculture Committee, and that is Debbie Stabenow of Michigan. So she's been a known champion of specialty crops. So, on both sides, in the House and the Senate, the chairs have said that they would like to have a farm bill signed by the president prior to the 2012 elections. But there's a lot of work to be done between now and then. And another key factor here is the federal budget deficit and all of the work that's being done both with the fiscal year 11 budget as well as the fiscal year 12 budget. So this debate will definitely have an impact on food and ag issues in general, and on the Farm Bill in particular. And the context is, there's going to be little money available for increased spending, and it's likely that we'll see budget reconciliation at some point, which would require mandatory spending cuts across the board. And another really key factor here is that several key programs that our allies have fought hard for over the years have no baseline after 2012. So programs like the Wetlands Reserve Program, the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program, and outreach and assistance to socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers are in a tight situation, and all programs are on the table for budget cuts. So this has been a really critical moment for the Community Food Security Coalition, because the other part of the context is that there's a high level of interest around food issues and around issues related to the Farm Bill. And we've been conducting listening sessions in person around the country during February and into early March. And this is a real opportunity to hear from folks around the country about what the key issues are in their communities, states, and regions, and then to really bring together this range of input and develop a draft set of policy priorities for the upcoming Farm Bill. And over the coming months, there will be additional opportunities for people to give us give us their feedback as the platform starts to take shape. And our target is to have a platform ready by July. So far, we've actually over the course of this time period, we'll conduct about a dozen in-person listening sessions across the country. We're organizing these in collaboration with local hosts, and we expect to have about 500 people participate in these in-person discussions. What we're finding is that most of the people who are turning out and who are really excited to think about the Farm Bill and how it can advance issues that they care about in their own community have not actually worked on a Farm Bill before. So there's a lot of education and awareness raising that's happening as we and our partners have these conversations with folks. And we've been using a common template for all of these listening sessions, the in-person sessions as well as this virtual listening session. And essentially what we've done is to identify 9 potential areas of action. You see those on the screen now that we in the Community Food Security Coalition think could gain some traction in the 2012 Farm Bill, and where we think we, based on our experience, history, and successes, could have an impact. So I'm going to turn it over to Megan now to start to review the first of those issues.
Hi, sorry about that. We are having some additional technical difficulties with the speaker here, so it shows up as Kathy talking, but this is in fact Megan. So just to start, the first item we're going to talk about are community food projects. And as Andy mentioned, the CFSC really helped get community food projects started in the '96 Farm Bill, and we have been the primary champion ever since. The Community Food Projects currently receives $5 million per year in mandatory funding, and many different types of projects have been funded, including farm to school, local food processing, community food assessments, and marketing of locally grown food. Recently, we, back in October actually of 2010, published a new report, the Activities and Impact 2005 to 2009, which really captures the results of 5 years of data collected from the Community Food Project grantees, and really goes on to talk a lot about the different projects that have been funded during that time period. So you can find that publication as well as more examples of funding or projects that have been funded through the Community Food Project on our website at the link on the slide. The next item is local food infrastructure, and this has come up as one of our potential areas because we feel that it's really important for building regional and local food systems and for reviving local economies. Various examples can include canneries, slaughterhouses, brokers, transportation, storage. All are needed to really revive the regional food economy. So we feel that several existing USDA programs could be enhanced to include these types of projects, such as the Rural Business Enterprise Grant or Rural Business Opportunity Grant Program, the Value Added Producer Grant Program, or perhaps new programs could be created to better support local food infrastructure. Urban or community-based agriculture is another area that has risen to the top over the past year. And we have it listed this way because we have found that simply referring to it as urban agriculture really just further polarizes the urban-rural divide. And what we mean by urban agriculture can be projects that could happen in urban, suburban, peri-urban, or even rural communities. So current efforts range from entrepreneurial to backyard gardens, and as I said, really could happen anywhere. I was recently in West Virginia, and they were talking about doing rooftop gardening in West Virginia to help keep some wildlife away. That's something that is also very common in New York City or other big urban centers where there's just a lack of space. So really looking at ways that we can bridge that gap. This is really something that could happen anywhere. And there's currently not any dedicated funding for urban agriculture in the USDA budget. So these types of projects often fall through the cracks. But we've seen a tremendous growth in interest over the past several years. Next, we'll turn it over to Andy to take on a few more of the areas.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is the SNAP program, formerly known as the Food Stamps program. It's approximately a $70 billion program. It is an entitlement which has grown substantially over the past years with the recession. And I believe there's about 40 billion people are currently on food stamps. So food stamps is, despite the size of it, really is underfunded. It provides minimal benefits to families. And it's technically based on something called the Thrifty Food Plan, which is technically nutritionally adequate, but based upon a high degree of cooking. I believe it's like 3 hours of cooking that would be needed to kind of be able to make the Thrifty Food Plan work. So there's the anti-hunger community and CFSC support increased benefits to the SNAP program to make it to enable families to be able to purchase more nutritious foods and more food in general. And we also may need to be focusing on restoring cuts. In the Child Nutrition Act reauthorization, a few $1 billion was taken from future benefits that were added as part of the stimulus program, as part of the stimulus package to food stamps, and that money has not been replaced yet. The Obama administration has put in their current budget that they would like to find money for that, but that money may need to come as part of the Farm Bill. So the next piece is linking SNAP to local and healthy foods. There's been a lot of interest in the public health community and also in the sustainable agriculture community about finding ways for the SNAP program to provide healthier food, and whether it should be more like the WIC program in the sense of that it's more prescriptive in the types of food that that people are allowed to purchase, or whether certain foods such as sodas would be eliminated from the list of foods that could be purchased from SNAP as part of the SNAP benefits. Another common approach has been around incentives for the purchase of fruits and vegetables. There's lots of farmers markets that are doing double coupons and the like to help people to help make fruits and vegetables more affordable. There's a healthy incentive purchase program that a pilot study is being done in Massachusetts to look at kind of cash incentives for fruits and vegetables and more kind of, I believe, in more mainstream and non-farmers markets. There's other ideas about possibly linking a portion of the SNAP benefits to farmers markets, CSAs, or healthy corner stores and the like to direct a portion of that $70 billion to community food type enterprises as a way to support that kind of alternative farm economy. And I think that's the main one on that. And then on food deserts, since the last Farm Bill, there's been a lot of attention on the food deserts. A number of organizations such as PolicyLink have been advocating for the Fresh Food Financing Initiative, the model from Pennsylvania, to be implemented at a federal level. And they've had a lot of success in getting Treasury, USDA, and I believe HUD to incorporate those programs. The funding has not been available yet to provide those kind of loans, loan guarantees, and grants to support entrepreneurial, to support food, to support food stores, new food stores in underserved communities. So that is something that's still on the table and may need to be part of the Farm Bill. And then in 2009, the administration set a goal to eliminate food deserts within 7 years. And the access to healthy foods has also been kind of one of the 4 pillars of the Let's Move campaign. So there's real interest within the White House as well on this issue. The main limitation is that it's not typically, there's not a place to hang a food desert hat within the Farm Bill. There's not a title under which this would go naturally. So it's a bit of a new approach for the Farm Bill.
Great. So
Okay.
picking up from there, another area where CFSC has had an impact and where there might be potential to focus additional efforts around the upcoming Farm Bill is direct marketing, including farmers markets. So, this is an area that the USDA has some history in terms of helping to promote direct marketing avenues like farmers markets and community-supported agriculture, and there would be their programs to look at would be the farmers market promotion program, which is providing competitive grants to help farmers markets, help farmers promote farmers markets and other direct marketing ventures, as well as the programs like the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, which provides fresh fruit and vegetable vouchers for low-income seniors to use at participating farmers markets or roadside stands or subscriptions to community-supported agriculture. Similarly, there's a similar program through the WIC program, and so CFSC has worked with the Farmers Market Coalition to publish a report on connecting SNAP recipients with farmers markets, including by making the EBT, the electronic benefit transfer machines, available for use at farmers markets, which would really help to level the playing field to reach folks who have access to SNAP. Another area that we're exploring and considering is food policy councils. So food policy councils bring together stakeholders from diverse food-related sectors to examine how the food system is operating and really develop recommendations on how to improve it. And they take many forms around the country. They can be commissioned by state or local government. They can be driven by the grassroots. And they're educating officials as well as the public and really helping to shape public policy and improve coordination among various food programs, because we don't actually have a Department of Food at the federal level, and so this is bringing some of that coordination in at the local and state level. It's an area that the current Secretary of Agriculture has some demonstrated interest in. He helped to start the Iowa Food Policy Council, but it's also an area that has no dedicated funding, and having a competitive pot of funds or providing technical assistance could help growth in this area. And then to round out the areas that we're that as a starting point for our consideration, looking at farm to school, and there are now farm to school programs in all 50 U.S. states. We've had a major boost with the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, which included mandatory funding of $5 million a year for a new competitive grants program to support farm to school. And now is really a time that we could expand on this win, and that includes building on the geographic preference flexibility that was allowed in the 2008 Farm Bill, or looking at areas like cash in lieu of commodities, or helping expand research on the impact of farm-to-school programs, or from the Farm Bill side, providing support for the farmers who are selling to schools, because the child nutrition side of things focuses mainly on schools and the educational setting. So those are the areas that we're exploring, and the next step here is for you all to take the online survey that you will receive a link to following up to this webinar. And basically, what we're asking is, based on what you've heard in this webinar about the Community Food Security Coalition and the work that we've done in the past on the Farm Bill, as well as your own experience in your community, your state, and your region. We want to hear from you about the 3 areas that you think it would be most important for CFSC to focus on in the upcoming Farm Bill. And then, beyond that, both your insights on the priorities as well as specifically what kinds of actions or changes you see that would facilitate progress. So thinking about what you want to make happen in your community around any of these areas. If you know of specific policy barriers that you face that could be removed, or specific help or support that could be provided that would make what you're working to do with your food system at the community level more effective, we want to hear about that. And we really want to stress that we're looking for broad input here. So it's not, even if you feel like you're not a policy expert, we're really looking for the kinds of actions and changes that you think would be helpful, and we'll be analyzing that feedback and figuring out what the hooks would be with the Farm Bill. So we really encourage you to take the survey and invite others to view this webinar when it's archived and take the survey also. And this will remain open until 11:59 p.m. next Tuesday, March 1st. And if you don't receive an email directly from us, you will be able to find a link to the survey and the archived webinar on our website. Just look for the 2012 Farm Bill, and you've got a link here that you can use as well. So where we are now in developing the policy platform for the Community Food Security Coalition is a phase of really broad and deep input gathering, really looking to hundreds of people in every region of the country to provide their insights through early March, and also at the same time monitoring and analyzing the context in Congress and what's happening in terms of agricultural policy, but also the broader budget debates that are dominating Capitol Hill at the moment. The next phase in March and April will be really taking some proposed priorities that emerge from these consultations and synthesizing them, and then beginning to vet them with key allies and partners who are also working on the Farm Bill, and really coordinating to ensure that we maximize convergence. And then the next phase will be really laying the groundwork for advocacy and mobilization. So that is, in each of those phases, we'll be looking for further feedback from our members and constituents as we finalize the proposed platform. So in addition to taking the survey, we really urge you to join as a member of the Community Food Security Coalition, and you have information here about how to do that. Get in touch with Emily Becker. If you want to stay updated on our progress, and particularly on the federal policy program, you can subscribe to our bi-monthly policy updates, also online. And if you want to get involved in really helping to develop our policy priorities and ensure that we have the plans to move them forward, you can let Megan know, and you can join the CFSC Policy Committee. And then another key step in this process will be the Food Policy Conference in Portland, Oregon from May 19th to 21st, and you can start registering for that now. So that is what we have in terms of presentation. I'll turn it back over to Megan to moderate questions.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. So I just want to let people know that we're going to open this up for questions and answers. We will stay on beyond 5 p.m. Eastern if folks do have additional questions, but we hope to be able to get to all of them. So just some a logistical questions information. To ask a question, please type your question in the small box at the bottom of the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel and press send. Please feel free to specify to whom your question is addressed if you would like to ask someone in particular. Most questions will be addressed, but we may have to respond to some afterwards. So if that is the case, we will try to answer as many verbally as possible. Like I said, we will stay on a bit beyond 5 p.m. Eastern if there are lots of questions, but we will also be able to respond electronically to some questions both during this Q&A session as well as afterwards. We can get back to you. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move on. As I mentioned, keep an eye on the questions box just in case any questions are answered that way. But just to start us off, we did have some initial questions. Andy, folks are interested in knowing a bit more about why the Farm Bill does not give much support to local agriculture. Can you take a stab at that one?
Why the Farm Bill does not give much support to local agriculture? Because historically the Farm Bill has been focused on really commodity agriculture, and there's a history of encouraging production to avoid hunger that has been out there. It's also been, initially the Farm Bill was it was launched back in the 30s really as a way to support farm prices to avoid farmers going under, to farmers going bankrupt. So that initial focus wasn't there, and I would have to say that the other real factor behind that is that the major lobbying organizations, commodity crop organizations in agribusiness, are very much focused on corn, soybean, cotton, rice, those kind of major commodities, and local agriculture does not have that major lobbying force behind it or political force behind it, so it just hasn't taken off in the way that production agriculture has.
Great, thanks, Andy. Next question is, Kathy, this might be a good one for you. If I am interested in running a Food and Farm Bill education session in my community, can you recommend any resources that would be useful, i.e. short presentations, discussion questions on the Farm Bill that would be helpful for the public?
Sure, that would be great, and that's one of the things that we're really seeing with these listening sessions that we've been organizing around the country, is that there's a thirst for knowledge about these issues. So you can definitely go to our website. There's a section there on the 2012 Farm Bill, and we've actually got a set of resources that we've been compiling, which will be we're going to be updating those links shortly, and that would be a great place to start. And Megan, do you have something you want to add here? You can also, if you are interested in actually having a listening session in your own community to hear what people think the priorities ought to be, we could make our template agenda available to you and provide some support to that to you in doing that. So, we'd definitely be happy to support and really interested in the feedback and the discussions that result from that.
Great, thank you for that. If you do have additional interest in hosting a Farm Bill listening session, please feel free to email us at policy@foodsecurity.org, and we will make sure to get you those materials. That email address will also show up in the follow-up email you will receive from the webinar with both a link to the survey and a link to that policy@foodsecurity.org email for further questions, comments, or feedback. Next question is related to ending food deserts in 7 years. One person says that this favors the massive entry of large, low-end grocery chains such as Kroger's and Walmart into communities rather than community food projects. How do we deal with this? I can go ahead and take an initial stab at this one and then see if Andy or Kathy have anything to add. I think that that is a really great point, and especially as we're seeing comments or proposals out there from some of these large end grocery chains to work on local campaigns, we really need to be cognizant of how they are defining what they're doing and how we're defining what we're doing, and making sure that we're not confusing those two and making sure that other people out there, such as the average consumer, isn't confusing those two. I think looking at something like the Healthy Fresh Food Financing Initiative is a really great example of this. The Healthy Fresh Food Financing Initiative started with the Philadelphia Fresh Food Financing Initiative in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and has been worked on at the national level by the Food Trust and the Reinvestment Fund out of Philadelphia, as well as PolicyLink out of California. And this, Philadelphia is a great model of where some federal, well, in Philadelphia's case, they had state funds that they were able to leverage with private dollars, and really established everything from the mom and pop grocery store in low-income, high-need communities to equipping existing infrastructure such as corner stores to be able to carry more healthy, local, fresh produce and other items. And so this is somewhere where I really see convergence with the Healthy Corner Stores Network, which is also co-run by the Community Food Security Coalition and the Food Trust. They've also used some of that dollar at the local level to bring farmers markets into communities of need. And so all three of these, from full service, larger grocery stores to the farmers market level, are things that are being on the table with the Healthy Fresh Food Financing Initiative. So as we move forward in that push to end food deserts, I think that is a great example, and those are all different areas for us to look at. Andy or Kathy, do you have anything else to add at this point?
I would just say that that it's an enormously complex issue, and that it depends a lot on the dynamics and the motivations and the incentives that chain supermarkets have, and whether they see a new market within underserved communities within food deserts, and whether they're going to go after that. Certainly, the Fresh Food Financing Initiative, if it plays out the way it did in Pennsylvania, is not going to support chain agriculture because it's mainly around access to credit, and supermarket chains have their own access to credit that they can get from banks. They don't need the federal government for those loan guarantees. So I think there's a lot of interim strategies, and I think it's I think it's a real stretch to think that there won't be any food deserts in this country by 2016.
Great, thank you, Andy. We have a lot of great questions, so I apologize for not getting to your question very quickly, but let's see. So there's a lot of questions out there about funding and people wondering if they're applying for existing programs such as the Farmers Market Promotion Program, is there a chance that those funds are in jeopardy of being cut? And similarly, with the current budget situation, is it really realistic to expect any new funds for new programs, or what kind of situation are we really working under? Kathy, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure, I'll take a start at it. So we certainly need to factor in the current budget context. At the same time, there are, we've, in terms of the overview that Megan just provided of the Farm Bill and Farm Bill spending, a lot of the initiatives that we're talking about that are having a tremendous impact in terms of building up community food security and local and regional food systems can be advanced with small but significant sums of money, and so we do need to be looking at speaking up powerfully for what kinds of priorities need to be set in terms of an overall food system that's going to serve both feeding people as well as developing healthy local economies that we can depend on in the long run. So it will be important to build those cases, not just in terms of the food policy context, but also in terms of the economic context and the benefits of community-based approaches. And then there are also really important policy changes that can happen through the Farm Bill that don't necessarily have a price tag attached to them. So a key example being the geographic preference flexibility in the 2008 Farm Bill, which really can, as it's implemented, have a major impact in terms of directing those food dollars to local farmers and local marketplaces and businesses.
Great, thanks, Kathy. I think one other thing I would just add in regards to the piece about if you're currently applying for any federal grant programs and you're worried about is it possible for those programs to get cut? Am I going to not be able to get that grant? Are they just going to disappear? It's a great question and one we don't entirely know the answer to. I believe that any requests for proposals that are currently out there from the government have guaranteed funding behind them at this point. And so you should be okay. However, simultaneously to this Farm Bill process, we're going through and setting spending levels for the current fiscal year and the upcoming 2012 fiscal year. There's a lot of cuts being put out there on the table, and so there's a lot that can be that is unexpected that could be coming. So while I say that right now you're probably fine and don't need to worry about it, that could change, and one way to really stay on top of those changes would be to sign up for our policy newsletter if you haven't already. The next one will actually be coming out this week at the end of the week, and so we really encourage you to sign up for that, and that's a great way to get that most updated information. So go ahead, Andy.
No, I just want to say one thing about, the funding situation, the budget situation, and I don't think we're in the situation of like, in kids' cartoons or a spooky house where it says "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." I mean, it's not that brutal. We are billions of dollars under baseline, and there are lots of programs that are set to be cut. But we were also able to get the Community Food Projects program through the '95 Farm Bill, in which there was an absolute mandate of no new programs. And that was obviously very small, but there's an awful lot more of us in the food movement nowadays than there was 15 years ago. So we still have the possibility of some victories. I just wouldn't count on them being, very broad or large at this point.
Great, thanks, Andy. I see one question here that I can answer pretty quickly. How do you determine local food deserts, and who makes the determination? Where can the information be found? There are a lot of different definitions out there for what is a local food desert, but one thing that came out of the 2008 Farm Bill was that USDA was required to do a study on food deserts, and that was released, I believe, in 2009. All my months and years are flowing together. And it was a very comprehensive report. There are a lot of criticisms and suggestions on how they could have maybe done it a little better out there as well, but that at least would be a great resource for folks to go to if they're interested in knowing how the USDA defines a food desert. I do also know that the Reinvestment Fund, the organization I mentioned earlier out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, has done a lot of similar research on food deserts and increasing access, and so that would be another place I would recommend that folks go for that sort of information. And I believe actually with the food desert study I was referencing out of USDA, it was the USDA Economic Research Service that did that study if you're interested in Googling it. So another question out here, or sort of series of questions, is I am starting a farmer's market in my community. What resources do you have available to support that initiative? And another farmers market question we have here is, does CFSC have a position on the policy that requires vendors at farmers markets to accept SNAP, debit, and credit to fill out a 1099? Is there any concern that this policy will prevent markets from accepting SNAP due to a greater administrative burden? I'm going to let Andy briefly take a stab at those questions and then try to fill in if possible. Andy?
I don't believe we have any resources available on how to start a farmers market. I would point you to the Farmers Market Coalition, which has a great resource center on their website. I think it's farmersmarketcoalition.org. And in terms of what we have not developed a position yet on that issue around 1099s and whether farmers markets will have to issue them with a relationship to funds that come in. I do have a lot of concerns, and that will be a real barrier for farmers to take SNAP and perhaps farmers market nutrition programs and other in lieu of cash payments that that markets would have to issue that tax document to. So it's a real issue, and it's broader than that. You know, there's also concerns around having to issue 1099s for goods and services. Well, not just for goods, but now for services that are provided up to $600. So, and for things like rent and office supplies and things like that, there's a law that's on the books with the healthcare reform that potentially could be very onerous paperwork for businesses across the country.
Great. Thanks so much, Andy. And I would just reiterate that the Farmers Market Coalition has some great resources around starting farmers markets, and recently this summer we did a report with them on increasing EBT redemption at farmers markets. So some other questions that come up, like I said, we've had a lot, so please bear with us. Is there anything the Farm Bill can do about the rising cost of land and ensuring that farmers have affordable access to land? I think that is something that, Andy, I'm not sure if you have anything to add on this one. I think that there are some loan programs within the Farm Bill that do assist people in buying land, and I believe that is in oh goodness, sorry, I'm quickly glancing. It's in the credit title, Title 5. So there are farm ownership loans, including beginning farmer or rancher and socially disadvantaged farmer or rancher contract land sales programs, as well as operating loans and farm credit. I do know that this is something that lots of people aren't entirely happy with the way it's been operating, and some of our colleagues, such as the National Family Farm Coalition, are looking into some of these farm credit issues. I think that is one to provide more detailed information here. We would have to do some additional digging and get back to you. That is not typically something that CFSC takes the lead on. Andy, do you have anything you'd like to add on that?
No, I don't know a whole lot about that issue.
Great. So we've got quite a few SNAP questions here. I'm going to try to lump them together and then give us a chance to tackle them at once. One is, how can SNAP leverage its relationship with retailers, both large and small, to improve the food environment for consumers? And the other is are your listening sessions including people with limited incomes, particularly those who are SNAP recipients? And then the third, you mentioned that the SNAP program is underfunded given the need and offers only minimal benefits. Is there an estimate for what an ideal level of funding would be? So I think, Kathy, do you want to take a stab at the listening session one, and then Andy, maybe you want to take a stab at the other two?
Sure.
Sure. So the listening sessions that we've organized so far, while broad and while involving a lot of people, have not really been a forum for SNAP recipients, and that's largely because of the outreach that we've done, that we've been doing with partners. Although some of the partner organizations that have been involved in organizing the listening sessions do work closely with, and their main constituents are SNAP recipients. So that does, I would say that further engagement of folks who are of SNAP recipients in the Farm Bill process is something that that over the course of the next several months, could be an important angle and definitely an important constituency for Congress to be hearing from. And the listening session template that we've developed is certainly something that that folks who are working primarily with SNAP recipients as a constituency could adapt for a community-based session, and it would be really valuable feedback.
My turn?
Sorry about that. Yes, it's your turn.
Okay. So with a response to the question about the dollar value for the low-cost food plan and how much it would cost to move to that, I do not know that. We can find that out for you. We'd probably talk to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities or the Food Research and Action Center, who would imagine would have the statistics. So we can try to get back to that person on that question. On the first question about how SNAP can leverage relationship with retailers to improve food access, there's a couple things that are going on within Food and Nutrition Service, which is the agency in USDA that administers that program. The first is that they are starting to give food stamp authorization to kind of non-traditional retailers such as Walgreens and gas stations and the like, who can be sources of food within communities. And then the second one is, that USDA has not seen fit to provide mobile vendors with free SNAP equipment. They've done it for kind of brick and mortar retailers, but not for farmers markets or CSAs or flea markets or other trucks and things like that. That's something that Senator Gillibrand has introduced a bill to promote and to mandate that USDA would do that. There was also $4 million that was in the President's budget for this year, for FY 2011, that I believe the Senate approved, but the House didn't, or vice versa. I don't remember exactly, but that money could be used also to provide terminals as well as technical assistance to farmers markets for taking SNAP payment.
Great, thanks, Andy. One additional SNAP question before we move on slightly is, how will CFSC position their recommendations as it relates to SNAP being traditionally an emergency food program and yet one that needs to be healthy and ideally follow the U.S. nutrition guidelines? And one thing I can say before turning it over to Andy or Kathy, who I'm sure have more to add, is that CFSC has not formally developed our position and recommendations, and that is exactly why we're doing the webinar today and encouraging you all to go participate in the survey. So just one more plug to please fill out that survey that we will be sending the link to you tomorrow and posting on our website following the webinar to let us know what you think our position should be as it relates to SNAP being traditionally an emergency food program and yet one that needs to be healthy and ideally follow the U.S. nutrition guidelines. So Kathy or Andy, anything to add there?
I don't have anything.
Great. Okay. Then we will move on. A few other questions we've gotten are, you didn't mention the other nutrition programs, such as the Food Distribution Program in Indian Reservations and the Commodity Supplemental Food Program. Will you be developing policy priorities for those programs as well? Do you see them as part of the community food security movement? One thing I can say about that is that you are right. We did not specifically pull them out. Both of those programs are in Title IV, the nutrition program title. And in the past, CFSC has been very supportive of those pieces. They were not pulled out in one of the priority areas in the PowerPoint presentation because it's not something we've typically taken a lead on. We work with many other coalition partners in supporting other areas, such as supporting asks around some of these nutrition programs, supporting sustainable ag, organic agriculture asks, supporting environmental asks. These are not areas we've typically taken the lead on, but will be supportive of. Andy or Kathy, anything you want to add here?
I'll say that I don't know those programs that in and out, but I imagine that they're based upon commodity purchases, as is the TFEP program. And that we are looking at ways that we can improve the commodity program through encouraging local purchases and encouraging kind of healthier alternatives. So I think that would be our focus if we were to, put a lot of energy into this program. But otherwise, I think we would follow the lead of as Megan said, of the mainline anti-hunger organizations on this program.
Great. Thank you. Kathy, how, if at all, do recent food safety and GMO authorization legislation influence the Farm Bill? And is there any recent updates or news on the GMO front? What other groups are working on those issues?
Great. So as far as food safety, the new legislation was passed in the closing hours of the 111th Congress, and that is actually the big issue there is now going to be the funding of the new responsibilities of the Food and Drug Administration with regard to food safety. So, since the Farm Bill deals primarily with, or deals with USDA, the food safety issues under USDA's jurisdiction are more limited and primarily meat and dairy products. As far as the GMO issue, that is there definitely been recent developments. The USDA approved the planting of GMO alfalfa without restrictions, and that's an issue that that we and many of our partner and member organizations are concerned about, and it's one that we've been we'll be looking to allied partner organizations for leadership on. So some of the good resources, actually, Megan, can you pick up and suggest a few of the allied organizations that we ought to be looking to?
Not a problem. I know that Food and Water Watch is working on this issue quite a bit, especially from the consumer perspective. I also know that several of the organic groups, such as the Organic Research Foundation, are putting out action alerts around there. So there's quite a few places you can look to find out more information on this related to food safety. The National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition and WORK, the Western Organization of Resource Councils, who are member groups of ours, are also doing great work and putting out great information on the food safety pieces. So I would encourage folks to look there for more information, as well as in our policy updates. We also highlight typical things, new outcomes, new funding, new legislation on these areas in there as well, and we'll one question is around specialty crops. What do you mean when you say Senator Stabenow supports specialty crops, and what are those? I think that's a really great question. We didn't go into that into great detail in the presentation, so I thank whoever asked that question. And basically, specialty crops are fruit and vegetables and some nuts and cut florals. It's an interesting thing that most of what we eat falls into the specialty crop category. But Michigan is the second most agriculturally diverse state in our country. It's also one of the biggest specialty crop producing states. And since Senator Stabenow both hails from Michigan and is the new chair of the Senate Agriculture Committee, it's good to see that we are going to have someone in charge of the Farm Bill reauthorization process who is supportive of specialty crops and looking at ways to increase support for fruits and vegetables. So I think, we don't have tons of information yet on what her support will be, what it will look like, but we do look forward to working with her and hope that the state of Michigan is a good indication of what she will be supporting and what our relationship will be like with her. And on that role of relationships, we have a few questions here on partner groups. Who are some of the new players or sectors that have overlapping strategic goals with CFSC membership, such as the health sector, insurance companies, hospitals, etc.? And what are your ideas around how to make these non-traditional collaborative efforts more effective in influencing the Farm Bill? Also, what, if any, challenges do you think we face in trying to bring multiple interest or advocacy groups together to present a strong and united front on the Farm Bill? I think I'm going to let Kathy take a stab at this. We have, gosh, my phone is ringing. Sorry, guys. We have a lot of plans in the works about how we're also engaging partners. So I will let her spend a few minutes on those.
Great. So there are definitely, I mean, the public health sector is one that is becoming increasingly interested in the Farm Bill, both from the nutrition side of things as well as looking at the the health impacts of the way that our food is grown, everything from pesticides to antibiotic resistance. So that's definitely an important community to for us to be reaching out to and helping to provide some background on the community food security issues and the perspectives of folks who've been working on ag and farming issues for a longer period of time. Certainly that other groups that are part of the burgeoning food movement would be, looking at increased engagement by consumer organizations and groups that are looking to influence the Farm Bill from the perspective of eaters, and so that's going to be a key constituency to engage. Another angle is really looking at youth and the role that young people play and can play in helping to set the agenda for food and farm issues, and particularly with the escalation and growth of farm-to-school programs. That's a really important group of people who are both benefiting from those programs, but also who will have valuable perspectives to offer. And another really key constituency or groups to engage. I mean, folks asked the question previously about the involvement of SNAP recipients in Farm Bill listening sessions, and we are especially looking for to engage with partner organizations that are working in low-income communities and communities of color with socially disadvantaged groups and with previously disadvantaged farmers and ranchers in terms of really making sure that those perspectives are brought into setting the Farm Bill agenda, particularly at a time of budget pressure and of the call to tighten the federal government's belt, which it's really important that budget cuts not be done at the expense of low-income people and of the folks who can really least afford to have programs and services cut. So those are some of the key constituencies that we're really engaging in this process, both through the listening sessions and beyond, as we take the input that you've provided us and help to and begin to synthesize a set of priorities. We'll be really checking those with leaders in various constituencies. So pass it back to Megan.
Great, thanks, Kathy. Andy, do you have anything you want to add to that question?
No, Kathy did a great job.
Great. So one quick question, and then we'll go ahead and end in a moment. But one quick question was where does dairy fit in and where does meat fit in? I'm just going to quickly touch on that one by saying it's a great question, and there is the livestock title in the Farm Bill, as well as the dairy programs that fit under commodities, the commodity title, and a few other places. But if you're really talking about where does local dairy and local meat fit in, it's a great question, and that is something we're looking to find the answer to. And I think this could fit in a number of our priority areas that we proposed to you earlier, including the regional and local food infrastructure piece. So if you have ideas on where that can fit in, please put that in your survey response. So one question to end it. I feel like it wouldn't be a Farm Bill discussion if we didn't touch on commodities in some way, and so saving the best for last, we have two related commodity questions. One is, do you think it would be possible to gradually phase out commodity subsidies, given that many of the commodity farmers are on the cusp of retiring, and thus phase in fruit and vegetable supports? And two, should we also be working to reduce the funding given for commodity support, as well as getting increased funding for all CFSC issues that you touched on in the webinar? Andy, do you want to take a stab at this one?
Wow. Those are very politically charged questions. And I would have to say that on the first question, phasing out commodity subsidies does not necessarily mean phasing in fruit and vegetable subsidies. I think a lot of specialty crop growers aren't really interested in those subsidies, although it certainly might make fruits and vegetables cheaper for consumers, which has some nutritional benefits. It's a hard one. It's a hard one to answer because even though a lot of commodity payments are going to people who are wealthy, and there should be payment caps there should be caps on how much a farmer can earn, after which they don't receive those commodity payments. Commodity payments are keeping a lot of mid-sized farmers afloat, and in many ways it's the only profit that's going into much of the country, into many counties of the Midwest in particular. So phasing out those subsidies would have real impacts on real people and on the value of land and on the banking system, and have a real ripple effect across the country. I don't know what the impact of that would be on the economy there. I'm sure folks like Darrell Ray and from University of Tennessee and National Family Farm Coalition probably have a much better analysis than our organization does. I guess I don't know how else to answer that question other than really refer people to folks who have thought long and hard about what is an extraordinarily complex set of issues.
Great. Thanks, Andy. And thanks to all of our participants out there. We had more than 500 people register, and we're really excited to see such an interest in the Farm Bill. As was mentioned during the webinar will be archived on the CFSC website at foodsecurity.org, as will be the link to our survey and a PDF of the PowerPoint slides. We've had several requests for just a PDF of the PowerPoint slides. Those will all be archived there shortly. Please do take the next step in going to our survey link. As we said, it will be sent to you automatically in an email from GoToWebinar, as well as posted on our website. So thank you all for engaging in the Farm Bill process. We look forward to hearing more from you. This is the end of the webinar.
Thanks a lot.